Shadows in the Dark summary. A citywide blackout plunges a small town into darkness, and with it comes a wave of terror as unseen entities begin to prey on the isolated residents. Outline 1. The Prelude to Darkness. The story begins with a normal evening in the town of Elmvale. Olivia, a single mother, puts her son Ethan to bed after a long day. Reports on the news warn of an unusual solar flare that might disrupt power grids. While most residents dismiss it as overblown, an ominous atmosphere settles over the town. Strange incidents foreshadow the blackout. Lights flicker unusually fast, animals behave erratically, and there are rumors of people disappearing after claiming they saw something in the dark. 2. The blackout. At precisely 9:13 p.m., the entire town loses power. Streetlights fail, phones die, and even backup generators refuse to start. Olivia tries to reassure Ethan, but her unease grows as she notices an oppressive silence settling over the neighborhood. In the darkness, she hears faint whispers outside her window, an unsettling hum that grows louder when approached. The first night. The narrative follows multiple characters. Olivia, who barricades herself and Ethan inside their home, haunted by fleeting shadows in the corners of her vision. David, a reclusive handyman, who ventures out with a flashlight, convinced it's just a power issue. He discovers his neighbor's house empty, the front door swinging open, and claw-like marks on the walls. Lila, a teenager babysitting 2 young children, who begins to suspect they are not alone in the house. Through their perspectives, the reader learns that something is stalking the town. The creatures in the dark. As the blackout continues into the second day, survivors realize the dark isn't just concealing them. It's alive. Humanoid figures, gaunt and shadowy, move freely, drawn to any source of light or sound. They are known only by their hissing breaths and glowing eyes. A survivor discovers an old legend of nocturnals, ancient entities that thrive in absolute darkness and feed on fear. The blackout, it seems, wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate summoning. 5. Survival and despair. The survivors try to outwit the creatures. Olivia uses candles sparingly, but their faint light only keeps the nocturnals at bay temporarily. David builds makeshift traps to protect himself, but faces increasing paranoia as the creatures whisper his name. Lila, in an act of bravery, leads the children she babysits to what she believes is safety, only to encounter horrors on the way. 6. The final showdown. As the creatures grow more aggressive, Olivia discovers a possible way to banish them. By flooding the town with light using an old hydroelectric dam. But the creatures anticipate her every move. In a desperate attempt, Olivia must rely on the town's survivors to work together and restart the dam while fending off the relentless nocturnals. 7. Aftermath. The power is restored and the creatures vanish with the light, but the survivors are forever scarred, their numbers drastically reduced. They realize the blackout wasn't a random occurrence but a trial, a warning. As Olivia tucks Ethan into bed again, she notices something chilling. The shadow in his room doesn't move when the light shifts. Shadows in the dark one. Prelude to Darkness. Elmvale was an ordinary town, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests. It was a place where life moved slowly, where the most excitement anyone had was the annual county fair or an overblown football game at the local high school. Olivia glanced at the clock on the stove. 8:45 p.m. The hum of the evening news filled the living room, where her 7-year-old son Ethan sat cross-legged, a bowl of cereal balanced precariously on his lap. "Come on, buddy," Olivia said, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Time for bed." "But the news says there's going to be a solar thingy," Ethan protested, pointing at the TV. On screen, a severe-looking anchorman was explaining the potential effects of an unusually strong solar flare expected to hit Earth's atmosphere that night. "It's just science stuff, sweetheart. Nothing to worry about," Olivia reassured him. But her own voice wavered. That evening, there had been strange occurrences all over town. The power flickered twice at the grocery store. Mr. Hughes's dog had been howling non-stop for hours, and when Olivia took out the trash earlier, She'd sworn the shadows along the alley shifted unnaturally, even though no one was there. By 9 p.m., Ethan was tucked into bed, the house quiet except for the faint rustle of wind outside. Olivia locked the front door and turned off the TV, catching a glimpse of her reflection in the dark screen. For a moment, she thought she saw another face behind hers, something pale and angular, but when she whipped around, the room was empty. She laughed nervously. "Get a grip, Olivia," she muttered. The blackout. At precisely 9:13 p.m., the lights in the entire town went out. It wasn't just the house. Olivia realized that the entire street was bathed in darkness. She went to the window, pulling back the curtain to see if anyone else's lights were on. Nothing. Her phone wouldn't turn on. The battery-operated clock in the kitchen had stopped ticking. Even the LED glow of her appliances was gone. "Mom?" Ethan's voice trembled from his bedroom. Olivia grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, but when she pressed the button, it refused to turn on. "Mom, my nightlight stopped working," Ethan said, appearing in the doorway with his favorite stuffed animal in hand. Olivia crouched down, pulling him into a hug. "It's okay, sweetie. It's just a power outage. Let's find some candles." The two of them fumbled in the kitchen until Olivia found an old box of candles buried in the pantry. As she lit one, the flickering flame cast long shadows across the walls. Ethan clung to her side, his small fingers clutching her shirt. "Why is it so quiet?" he whispered. She hadn't noticed it until he mentioned it. The familiar background noises, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant buzz of streetlights, the occasional bark of a dog, were gone. The silence felt heavy, oppressive. First encounters. Down the street, David, a reclusive handyman, was finishing a beer in his cluttered workshop when the blackout hit. Unlike Olivia, David had plenty of flashlights, and every single one failed to work. "What the hell?" he muttered, shaking one of them vigorously. He stepped outside, where the darkness seemed thicker than usual, almost tangible. As he walked to his neighbor's house to check on them, he noticed something strange. Their front door was wide open. "Hello? Mrs. Carter?" No answer. David stepped inside cautiously, his boots echoing unnaturally loud on the hardwood floor. The house smelled damp, and the air felt colder than it should. In the faint moonlight streaming through the windows, he saw deep scratch marks gouged into the walls, 3 long, jagged lines that trailed from the floor to the ceiling. Lila, a 16-year-old babysitter, was with the Harris kids on the other side of town. When the power went out, she thought it was just a typical outage. But the youngest, Maddie, began crying hysterically. "There's someone outside!" Maddie wailed, pointing at the sliding glass door. Lila looked out into the yard. She couldn't see anything but pitch-black darkness. Yet, as her eyes adjusted, she thought she caught movement, a shifting shadow, like someone crouching low to the ground. "Stay here," she told the kids, locking the door. As she turned away, she swore she heard something tapping on the glass. The creatures in the dark. By midnight, Olivia realized the blackout wasn't normal. The candles she lit seemed to burn faster than usual, their flames dimmer. And the shadows, the shadows, moved. Not with the flicker of the flame, but on their own, like living, breathing things. Ethan sat huddled under a blanket, his eyes wide. "Mom, there's someone outside." Olivia froze. "What do you mean?" "I saw them," he whispered. "They were looking at me through the window." David, armed with a wrench, tried to investigate the noises he kept hearing around the Carter house. He found himself drawn to the basement, where a faint glow pulsed in the dark. As he descended the stairs, he saw it. A creature hunched over in the corner, its elongated limbs folding unnaturally as it turned to face him. Its eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the faint light like a predator in the wild. David didn't scream. He couldn't. The sound was caught in his throat as the creature lunged. Desperate measures. Olivia's instincts screamed at her to protect Ethan. She locked the doors, barricaded the windows, and sat with her son in the corner of the living room. Through the window, she could see them now, multiple figures moving in the dark, circling her house. They were humanoid, but wrong. Their limbs were too long, their movements too smooth, too deliberate. A knock echoed on the front door. "Who's there?" Olivia called out, clutching a kitchen knife. A low voice replied, raspy and chilling. "Let us in." Lila, desperate to protect the Harris kids, remembered her father's shotgun hidden in the garage. She ran for it, the sound of glass shattering behind her as one of the creatures forced its way inside. The final showdown. By the second night, Olivia learned from a radio broadcast that a hydroelectric dam near Elmvale could flood the town with light if its generators were restarted manually. Teaming up with David, who had narrowly escaped the creatures, they devised a plan to reach the dam. They navigated the dark streets, evading the creatures, who seemed drawn to any sound or flicker of movement. At the dam, Olivia and David faced their final challenge. The creatures swarmed, their hisses and whispers deafening. David sacrificed himself to buy Olivia time to start the generators. Aftermath. The lights roared back to life, banishing the creatures into nothingness. Olivia returned to Elmvale to find the town in ruins. Survivors huddled together, their faces pale and gaunt. As she tucked Ethan into bed that night, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. And when she glanced at the corner of his room, she saw it again, a shadow that didn't belong. It smiled,